Fire Ranger series. Stay wild at heart. Powered by NECC. Sunday ho ya Monday, रोज खाओ अंडे.
Good evening, hello and welcome. You're with the news today. This is your primetime destination. News, newsmakers, talking points. The big talking point this Thursday night. Targeted killings that have jolted Kashmir. Is this an attempt to torpedo Modi government's Naya Kashmir, or is the government failing in its mission Kashmir? That's going to be our big talking point. Also, our exclusive tonight, International Booker Prize winner Geetanjali Shree will be joining me. She's among my guests who join me on the news today. But first, as always, it's time for the 9 headlines at 9 tonight. AAP versus Sisodia fight gets bigger over arrest of Delhi Minister Satyendra Jain. Kejriwal claims he has information that Deputy Chief Minister Sisodia will be arrested next. Another targeted killing in Kashmir. Banker shot dead by terrorists. Chilling CCTV video emerges. Kashmiri Hindus begin to leave the valley. Home Minister reviews the security situation. Weeks after quitting the Congress, Patidar leader Hardik Patel joins the BJP ahead of the Gujarat poll, says he will work under Prime Minister Modi's leadership. The pilot versus Gehlot war reignites in Rajasthan. The former Deputy Chief Minister Sachin Pilot questions the Chief Minister for inaction against unruly BJP leaders, highlights Congress-era scams in a fiery speech. The full Moosewala blood trail revealed. New CCTV video minutes before the murder of the Punjab singer politician shows 2 vehicles trailing the rapper. Security of 434 VIPs to be restored as the AAP government remains under pressure. Actor Johnny Depp wins a defamation lawsuit against his ex-wife, says jury gave me my life back. Amber Heard ordered to pay $15 million in damages. Another mass shooting in the United States. 4 people shot dead in a hospital campus shooting in Oklahoma after a gunman opens fire with rifle and handgun. Shooter killed by the police. Messi's Argentina thrashes Italy 3-0 to win the Finalissima title between the champions of Europe and South America. Last rites of singer KK held in Mumbai. Heartbroken fans and top singers pay tribute. Last images show an unwell KK leaning on elevator rails. But tonight's top story comes from the Kashmir Valley, where there is no let-up in the targeted killings, particularly of those belonging to the Hindu community. Vijay Kumar, a bank employee from Rajasthan, was killed in Kulgam on Thursday morning. He was shot dead by an unidentified gunman inside the bank where he worked. 10 people, including Hindus and government employees, have lost their lives in just the last 1 month in Kashmir. There have been 17 targeted killings, 11 of them Hindus, 6 local Kashmiri Muslims since the start of the year. Now there are fears among the Kashmiri Hindu community that, much like in the 1990s, the community is being forced to leave the valley. Are we seeing another exodus? Is the big question. The Modi government is now on trial. Home Minister Amit Shah has called a meeting tomorrow amidst growing concerns over the security situation in the Kashmir Valley. It's our top story tonight from Ashraf Mani.
Another targeted killing in Kashmir. The victim, Vijay Kumar from Rajasthan, who was working as a bank manager in South Kashmir's Kulgam district. On Thursday morning, this terrorist pointed a gun at Vijay Kumar and shot him dead as he worked inside his bank. Vijay Kumar was just 27 years old. He had gotten married only a couple of months ago. The murder has left his family in Rajasthan numb with shock, as you can imagine.
370 डालने के बाद सीधे गुवाहाटी आकर बड़े अटैक करते थे। वो तो सारा सरकार ने उस पर पाबंदी लगाया, वो तो कंट्रोल कर दिया। ये उन्होंने नया रास्ता निकाला वो इसलिए कि दूसरे स्टेट वाले यहाँ भूसे की न बन जाए, इनकी ये प्लानिंग होगी, बाकी तो पता नहीं क्या प्लानिंग है।
Vijay Kumar's murder is the latest in a series of killings that has jolted Jammu and Kashmir. Kashmiri Pandit teacher Rajni Bala, TV artist Amreen Bhatt, police constable Saifullah Qadri, Kashmiri Pandit Rahul Bhatt. 10 people have lost their lives to jihadi terror in the past 1 month in Kashmir. The victims, in most cases, are either Hindus, government employees, or civilians. The spate of murders has sparked fear among the communities in the valley. Many have started leaving the state as well.
यही हमारी एग्नी है जो हमारी गवर्नमेंट इसको एड्रेस नहीं कर रही है। ठीक है, यही हमारी एग्नी है। हम उनको वो हमें कहते हैं कि हाँ सेफ एरिया में लेके जाएंगे। सर कश्मीर देयर इज नो सेफ एरिया इन कश्मीर सर।
छोड़ के आना सर, वहाँ पे मरना है क्या? किसके लिए वहाँ पे रुकना है? टोटली अनसेफ है वहाँ पे। हम कमरे से बाहर नहीं निकल सकते हैं, भाग के आना पड़ा हमें वहाँ पे।
In Jammu, the Hindu community held protests seeking protection against jihadi terror that is seeing an upsurge. The Jammu and Kashmir administration has decided to move Hindu employees in government service to district headquarters. But employees are demanding much more assurance on their safety than just that.
Two targeted killings of the two government employees of minority community in the Kulgam district of South Kashmir has not only exposed the big claims of the Jammu and Kashmir government and security agencies, but in fact increased the worries and fear among the non-Muslims in Kashmir Valley. That is why now many families of the government employees, particularly Kashmiri Pandits, are once again leaving the valley. With Rauf Ahmed, Ashraf Wani for India Today in Srinagar.
The big questions that we must raise tonight. Are these killings a bid to torpedo Mr. Modi government's Naya Kashmir? Is the government unable to give security to Kashmiris, especially to Kashmiri Hindus? Is the fear of a return to a 90s-like exodus of Kashmiri Pandits and Hindus being exaggerated, or is that the reality now on the ground? Joining me now are Sushil Pandit, Kashmiri Pandit activist who's been close to the BJP. Dr. Samir Kaul is from the National Conference, a spokesperson of that party, the party of the Valley. Aparajita Sarangi is BJP MP and spokesperson. Manoj Joshi, distinguished fellow ORF, has written books on the Kashmir Valley. We also hope to be joined later by Sajjad Lone. But let's come to you, Aparajita, first, because when Article 370 was effectively lifted, scrapped in August of 2019, there was talk of a Naya Kashmir. Is this a Naya Kashmir where targeted killings continue to take place? Is this not a sign that for all the talk of normalcy, on the ground, targeted killings continue? Where does this leave Naya Kashmir, Aparajita Sarangi?
At the outset, I can say that I strongly condemn the brutal murder of Vijay Kumar. No words of mine can bring solace to the bereaved family. My deepest condolences. But at the same time, I can only say with all conviction at my command that the government is on its job, and please, for heaven's sake, do not question the policy and intention of Prime Minister Modi government as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned. Since the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A, we have been trying very hard to bring in normalcy there, to restore peace there, and all our endeavors have been appreciated by all. But then, yes, let me tell you very frankly that there are terrorist outfits beyond our country, in Pakistan, and some elements within the country who do not want peace and harmony in the UT of Jammu and Kashmir, and let's accept that. They would definitely not like a situation where everything goes well. The efforts of the government to bring in peace and normalcy in the region has not gone down well with many of the people. So I think we have to keep this in mind when we talk about it. But then, yes, I can say that a high-level meeting is going to be conducted tomorrow. Honorable Home Minister Shri Amit Shah ji and the National Security Advisor Shri Ajit Doval had sat today for hours, and tomorrow is the high-level meeting, and I'm sure we are hopeful that there would be a blueprint, there would be an action plan as to how we deal with this situation with iron fist. It's not that we have not doing our best. We have been putting in all efforts to ensure that there is peace and normalcy. But then, I think we
let me
need
stop
to-
you for a moment. You
Yeah.
said that you believe that it is unfair to blame the government for what is happening in the valley, that the government is trying its best, and many would agree with that the government is trying its best, but there are certain ground realities that we now need to come to terms with. I'll come to you, Aparna Sarangi, and my other guests in a moment. Sajjad Lone, chairman of the Jammu and Kashmir People's Conference, is also joining me. Sajjad Lone, give me a sense of where you stand on the targeted killings that are taking place in the valley at the moment. Are we, as some fear, returning to that dreadful period of 89-90 where terrorists are able to frighten a section of the population? Kashmiri Pandits exodus took place in January of 1990. Now there are fears that whatever Kashmiri Hindu families are left in the valley, many of them government employees, all want to leave. Are we returning back to the past?
Look, first of all, let me tell you that, it's a very painful moment for us here in Kashmir when we see that unarmed civilians, innocents, are being killed by terrorists, by militants, by armed men, and they attack non-combatants, civilian people, for no fault of theirs, absolutely innocent people. And it's very difficult for us because, we are as helpless as those who are being killed, Rajdeep, let me tell you, in this painful moment, that it is not only the non-Muslims, if not a day passes when a Kashmiri Muslim is not killed, in the form of a policeman being killed, in the form of someone they think who is an informer being killed. So we feel we're as pained and as helpless and as much at the receiving end. When you talk of is it returning, you see the reality is that whenever I have met you, Rajdeep, you decide in Delhi that there is normalcy, now there is not normalcy. I believe that a certain level of violence never went away. Never ever went away, a certain level of violence. And that is still there, which is that last vestigial, which is very, very perseverant and refuses to go. But then in Delhi, in the newsrooms, you decided it has gone, only to find out that it is not gone. So
are you saying, when you say last vestige, are you saying these are desperate acts of terrorists, that this is the last stand? Or are you saying that the violence never left? Now it's found a new target because it is spreading fear among the minorities. That is the Hindu community there. Yes, even Muslims have been killed. No one denies that. But it appears that targeted killings to spread fear and panic and create an exodus seems to be the modus operandi of the terrorist groups.
Look, I'll tell you something. I will repeat that, yes, a certain level of violence. It was never violence-free in the last 30 years. You cannot say a single week when we have been violence-free. So first thing is that, yes, it was never violence-free. It is not returning to something. Something is revealing itself. An underbelly, an ugly underbelly of what can happen is revealing itself. So it's not that that it is something new. It was there. And it has happened. And, yes, it could be that they want to scare. And the best thing we can do, Rajdeep, is, although it's very difficult for me to say, because I personally have security for myself, but I have also lost my father to bullets. So there has been violence in my family also. But the best way to defeat them is by not getting scared. Although, as I told you, that it's very easy for me to say, but those who are out there, it's very difficult.
No, that's exactly, that's exactly. For you today to say on my program that people must not get scared, you have security, as you have admitted. The average person, this bank manager has no security.
Yes,
there are hundreds of people without security. I go to a government job, I get shot dead. A chemist, one of the most famous chemists in Srinagar a few months ago got shot dead. These are helpless people. When today on my show you're saying you're helpless and don't get scared, how do people not get scared?
Rajdeep, when my father was killed, we were given 10 days, I'm saying it today, to leave. Or we will also be. I didn't leave. That's the reality. And I had no security. His Highness Farooqullah was the chief minister. He said, I will not give him security. For 3 months, I had no security after my father was killed. But I stayed back, and I'm happy I stayed back.
Sir, I know that you're happy you've stayed back, you've been brave enough to stay back, but what about, I come back to it, at least politicians have security, average people don't. I mean, the question is, what is the solution? Some believe that you've got to restore some element of political authority in Jammu and Kashmir, that having governor's rule, Delhi rule is not enough. Do you believe that's the solution? Or do you believe these terrorist groups will operate irrespective of whoever is in power in Srinagar or Delhi or Jammu?
Look, I'll tell you, as a politician, I'm tempted to agree wholeheartedly what you are saying. But the reality is that, as I told you, during political governments also, killings have taken place. Didn't Shujat Bukhari die during our time? Wasn't he killed in broad daylight? Weren't Pandits killed then? So, but yes, all I can say is that there is a certain element of aloofness, which I personally have not seen. I will tell you a simple thing. I have lost a member of the family to bullets. I belong to an area which is bordering the LOC. We have a lot of workers on the ground. I'm a public person. Till date, nobody has ever come to ask me, do you have any inputs to help? Not that I volunteer to help. But problem is that there are too many experts running like, headless chicken. That's the real problem.
No,
everybody seems to be an expert. You throw a stone, it will hit an expert. And every expert has to be a non-Kashmiri. That's another problem. So if you talk of that, yes, violence is in Kashmir, and they believe that externally, and I use the word, the non-Kashmiri thing, is that the locals have a flavor of what is happening. They can see things in the air which perhaps you might not be able to see or visualize.
No, but you're making very, very interesting point. But Sajjad Lone, are locals willing to reach out to the so-called outsiders? In this case, Vijay Kumar, a banker, was from Rajasthan. Are they willing? Are local Kashmiri Muslims who are influential willing to try and see if they can do something to help? Or have you all now, particularly after Article 370's abrogation, is there a vacuum that exists now? And is there a absence of trust and dialogue?
Unlike the rest of the country, we have mothers here. You know, when we were jailed, we didn't see any mothers in the whole country. We only saw Indians. Fine, do this to them, do that to them. But I can tell you, my mother cried in the morning for what happened to that lady yesterday. Trust me, my hand on my heart, she was crying in the morning. I went to a marriage ceremony yesterday and people were talking about her purse, about her shoes. These are common people feeling the pain but being helpless. Whether there is Article 370 or not is a different matter. But every Kashmiri, or I would say a vast majority of Kashmiris are with these people. They don't want their name to be sullied by blood marks.
No, but they're also scared.
Indulging in violence. No, not at all. We are human beings like anybody else. There are mothers here who feel the pain. What if this guy was married 3 months back? You really think that there will be a vast majority of the population rejoicing that he was killed? No. But then they are scared. They are as scared as this person.
I'm going to ask you a provocative question. Do you believe that post Article 370 things have got better or not?
Things were never better in Kashmir. I told you that there was an element of violence which was always there. But then there is an element of management. I think the one of the problems that I see, and I'm not saying this as an act of weakness, but then violence has to be countered, operationally and also psychologically. In the psychological element, I think things have gone from bad to worse. The language that the officials use here is very overtly muscular. Very, very muscular. So I think they might do good to the whole country by leaving their so-called macho, muscular language, give it a break for a time, and work harder on on their intelligence apparatuses, on counter-insurgency measures and other things.
A final question. Do you believe, therefore, the atmosphere is such that it's impossible now to contemplate of a return to the political process, i.e. some kind of elections? Do you believe all of this is being done by Pakistan and local terrorist groups that have emerged, and their singular aim is to send out the message that Kashmir is once again unstable?
Look, I'll tell you something. I wouldn't link it to elections. I would not link it to elections. And I can tell you one thing, that this, you have to give it to any government. You cannot stop targeted killings. The only problem here is that the pat on the back, which has been going on for the last 3 years, that myth might have been busted. But you can never stop targeted killings, never. Even in a Gujarat or in a Delhi or in a Haryana. If there is some madman, some terrorist who wants to come and kill somebody, it's very difficult in this big world to stop that one person. It's not that easy. But having said that, I would always have thought that, I will repeat, that there is something called, there are regional aspirations. By regional aspiration, I mean locals. Maybe I used the wrong word. Locals, they have a flavor of what is happening. And things which might be invisible for somebody outside are visible to them. And they have a better hold. This whole thing of trying to prove a point. Unfortunately, they are trying to prove a point at the cost of this poor bank manager. Let me repeat, if the terrorists who have killed them, we need not to give them any kick by our utterances. But yes, we also need to do some tidying up. The pat on the back, the muscular language. You have to earn friends. This is a stealthy world, terrorism. It's all underground. And yes, you do need a lot of people who will penetrate there, do it on their own. And for that, you need to encourage them. Right. You don't need to scare them. Scaring is not only from, even I believe that if you come and meet Kashmiris today, there is an element of scare for the common Kashmiri from all sides, even from the state, unfortunately.
Let me leave it there. I would wish my producer would have flashed what you've just said, because you've said something extremely significant. You've said fear is there in both communities, Kashmiri Muslims and Kashmiri Hindus. And you're very clear that the time for muscular language is over. You need to find some other kind of language that builds the bridges between the two communities. And that is critical, Sajjad Lone. I appreciate your joining us. And as you said, politicians have security. The Aam Aadmi of Kashmir does not. You will continue to have security. The Aam Aadmi of Kashmir will not. Let me use what Sajjad has said to widen this debate. Sushil Pandit is joining us. And Sushil Pandit, you've been a Kashmiri Pandit activist. You just heard what Sajjad Lone said. Your response, the time for muscular language is over. Kashmir Files, the film, got a lot of popularity across India. But in the end, on the ground, life is not a cinema.
Thank you, Rajdeep, for calling me to your show. Is Mr. Lone still there?
No, he's left. But go ahead.
Yeah, because coming from him was rather rich. When he talks about his father getting killed, why doesn't he tell you that they were the first ones to send the boys across the LOC to get trained and get armed? Their band of mujahids were called Al-Badr. Can he deny that? 2, why did he and his brother join the same Hurriyat conference which got their father shot? Why? Didn't they have any shame or self-respect? Why was he part of that jihad? 3, have you seen his book, Kashmir, a nationhood? What was that name for that book? A possible nationhood or something like that? Do you know what he calls for in that book for Kashmir? And when he joined mainstream politics, when he quit Hurriyat to fight elections, his assurance to his supporters was, I have not changed my ideology, I have only changed my strategy.
Are you holding, are you holding, no, 1 minute. Are you holding, therefore, the likes of Sajjad Lone responsible for what we've seen in the last 6 months? Or do we put the blame? This time, you see, the government in power in Srinagar is a central government administered Jammu and Kashmir working under the Home Ministry's instructions with the LG in power. 10 years,
yes, sir.
When Sajjad, today can I blame Sajjad Lone? Or today should I blame the government in power in Delhi and Srinagar?
Absolutely. I will not leave anyone. And let me jog your memory. About 6-7 years back, I used to cry myself hoarse saying, please do not allow frenzied funeral of fallen militants. Don't give them a halo of martyrdom. Don't create a spectacle because it impacts impressionable minds. Those teenagers of 6-7 years ago today are 23, 24-year-olds pulling the trigger. This is the crop you harvest. And at that time, BJP, PDP, and this Sajjad Bone all were complicit in it in the name of healing touch. Why wouldn't you ask him this question? Today we are paying the price in terms of innocents losing lives. And this is not Pakistan-trained terrorists. These are homegrown terrorists coming out from the neighborhoods. So who are we fooling? We have contributed. We've seen these people contribute to this cauldron and then walk away talking big. My blood boils because this kind of politics, talking sweet, talking about how in that wedding people were talking about a bag and a pair of shoes left, my foot.
So you believe
these are hypocrites?
You believe
imposters
this is
of the first
you
order.
believe these are imposters? These are hypocrites who did not stand up when they should have been stood up to be counted during the years of insurgency and terror, and therefore they have no moral high ground left today.
Look at his past. He belonged to Hurriyat.
Okay, let me.
And he.
As I keep saying,
comes from a family. Abdul Ghani Lone, his late father, be peace upon him, sent the first batch of boys across the LOC, named that organization Al-Badr.
So his father was also killed by...
His father was killed because if you play with fire, if you live by guns, you die by guns.
Okay. Let me bring in...
Pakistan starts doubting you, Pakistan thinks that in order to become a chief minister, you are supping with the central government, they will have you shot. ISI will do it. And which is why he did not allow Gilani to attend his father's funeral. He chased him away, but later joined the same Hurriyat. Today he tells you that he did not leave Kashmir. Why doesn't he tell you these things? What are these conundrums in his life? What are these contradictions all about?
Can I for a moment stop you, Sushil? I can sense your anger and it is genuine. I've heard you in the past speak also, and your language hasn't changed. I want to bring in at this moment Samir Kaul, because Samir Kaul, what effectively is being suggested is that the political parties in the Kashmir Valley have failed. They today lack the credibility to, in a way, offer any kind of healing touch. There is no healing touch left. All that is left is a vacuum. Do you accept that?
At the very outset, thank you for having me on the program. And I wish everybody, the lady and the gentleman on this program, good evening. But I just hope and wish that the number of people who have been dying in Kashmir of late, they're having bad evenings. And the fair and everything else, I heard diverse views on this program. Today, there is absolutely no doubt it's a very, very difficult situation and condemnable. And we do that with aplomb. Every time there is a death, all of us come forth and we condemn it. And we hold a meeting of the security officials and we try to reassure the people. The government is doing it. It's not that they are trying. But has it not occurred to anybody in this country that if there are failures on any front, first of all, is the policy towards Jammu and Kashmir, which has been adopted over the last 5 to 6 years, achieving its objective? That is the first question. First of all, is there a problem? Obviously, the answer to that is there is a problem. That's why we are having this debate this evening and we are talking to each other and we're trying to find out that what can be done. First, it's a multifactorial existence, in the sense there's not one reason for what is happening. There are many reasons. There is a mischievous, malicious neighbor. There are national politics, which has an overdose of religion in it. Number 3, there are local factors, which means a vacuum. And it's not just people dying. The very premise of BJP's Jammu and Kashmir policy to set law and order on the right path is something that is completely suspect because it hasn't achieved it at all. On the contrary, it creates tragic losses every day and nobody gets pulled up for it. Nobody resigns. There is no moral obligation to do that.
Sir,
they just justify
Dr. Samir call before I go to Manoj. No.
Now, political parties.
No, I asked you the political parties. The fact
you would
is
like
the
to put the blame on the political parties?
Yes.
I'm saying don't. I'm saying don't because it's the very political parties which would have avoided this vacuum are not there. So why blame them? Now, for instance, National Conference, you keep blaming for this and that. The only people, it's just not the Kashmiri Pandits, my community. It is the minorities. The minorities, the Sikh girl, the teacher, she died. Muslims died. The numbers are more. The people from Jammu die. It's Kashmiri Pandits die. But all of us are targeted because there is a huge vacuum. It's not, and law and order, fine. What about employment? So many other issues. There is no governance at all.
No, Dr. Call. Dr. Call for. Okay, you made very strong comments. Before I bring you Manoj Joshi, let me get Sushil Pandit to respond and Aparna Sarangi. Sushil Pandit, you first.
Thank you, Rajdeep. I have heard this often that even Muslims die. And every time this happens, one must clarify. Please don't give jihad a cover or camouflage it by saying even Muslims die or dilute the targeted killing of Hindus. These Muslims who die either die because they wear a uniform and serve this country, or they are considered an obstacle in the way of jihad, or they are not good enough Muslims. If they are TikTokers, YouTubers, singers, performing artists,
Sushil Pandit, over the years, thousands of Muslims have died. Let's be clear. This needs, people in India need to recognize that Muslims and Hindus have suffered.
Thousands of Muslims die in Afghanistan. Thousands of Muslims die in Pakistan at the hands of terror. Jihad, this is the nature of the beast. But does that give jihad a free pass?
No, of course it doesn't.
Muslims will die. When Hindus are not left to be killed, Muslims will kill each other as they do in Pakistan. But that needs to be understood by Muslims themselves, what they are playing with.
Okay, can I?
That is the nature of the beast. But that doesn't mean you must give a free pass to, or you must rationalize jihad and call it a secular phenomenon.
I don't think anyone
is not a secular phenomenon.
No one is rationalizing it, Sushil. No one is rationalizing it. It is in the form in which it plays out in the valley. It has only led to bloodshed. But Manoj Joshi, do you sense a pattern in the last 6 months? Is it desperation of terrorists as the government claims? Or is it that there is this vacuum at the moment? Since Article 370 was effectively removed in August 2019, we don't have an elected government on the ground. We have a situation now where there are no interlocutors. Who is going to talk to the Kashmiri people at all? Is that the problem, Manoj Joshi? Or do you sense Pakistan once again reviving terrorism in some form?
It's nothing to do with Pakistan. I have heard the whole conversation.
Or is it homegrown terror?
I've heard the rantings of Sushil Pandit, who is certainly not helping, meaning over time, his rantings have only contributed to the problem. See, the whole point is that the government policy of excessive pride, in English, there's a word for it called hubris. Now, I don't know whether some of your people will understand what hubris means.
Arrogance.
In simple Hindi word, it means gaman. So you have a gaman. So you declare that you will take care of the situation, because the problem is that any complex situation like what's happening in Jammu and Kashmir requires management through political negotiation, diplomacy, and military action. So all three must be combined together. You can't just have military action. So you say Operation All Out, we're going to wipe out all the terrorists, and you start hitting. So you wipe out. In your strategy, you also completely sideline all the pro-India political parties like the National Conference. It's a major blunder, if I may put it that way. I have no sympathy for Sajjad Lone. I'm not talking about that. But certainly, as far as the National Conference and the PDP is concerned, to marginalize these parties has been a blunder of the first order as far as this government is concerned. Right. And also to try to think that they can simply, by kinetic means, killing people, wiping out terrorists, they could deal with the situation. This has not happened anywhere in the world. I think you've got to have a mix of means, and we don't see that mix.
Can I just take what you've said? You used a word there. You used a word, Manoj Joshi, ghamand, arrogance. Aparajita Sarangi, this is a word that Sajjad Lone called it the muscular language is not working. Sushil Pandit also in some way seems to express, as does Samir Kaul, a frustration with the political system. Is there a ghamand, the belief that we've abrogated Article 370, now things will be fine? They're not fine. There is a genuine concern on the ground. The BJP government perhaps thought that you can just run Kashmir with an iron fist. That's obviously not working at the moment, ma'am.
Not at all. There is no ghamand whatsoever. We are completely grounded. We are seized of the matter. Passions are running high today. I can very well understand. And this is not the time to bring forth statistics before all of you. This is not the right time. But then I need to do that to support my contention that this particular government under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi and with Honorable Amit Shah ji as the Home Minister means business. We have zero tolerance to terrorist activities. And I have certain figures. Please allow me just maybe 30 seconds. Sure. Since the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A, 87 civilians and 99 security personnel have been killed. Now, if you compare these figures with the yesteryears, 5 years before that, 177 civilians and 406 security personnel had been killed. And there has been decline in the number of terrorist attacks also. Today, in fact, this is not the time to say all these things, but then fact is fact. Reality is reality. Government is serious. There is a decline in the terrorist attacks. In 2018, 417 attacks, 19, 255 attacks, 2020, 244 attacks, and 2021, 229 attacks. So I think there is a robust security and intelligence grid in place, and we are trying our best. I reiterate, please do not question the policy and the intention of Prime Minister Modi's government as regards restoration of peace and normalcy in Jammu and Kashmir.
No one questions intentions. Every government comes with good intentions. The question is it working on the ground? You're throwing figures at us, some of which will certainly suggest that the kind of large-scale terror attacks are now being replaced by targeted killings. And that's the worry, because that is even very difficult to contain. Sushil Pandit, are you willing to give the Modi government the benefit of doubt? You've been closely associated in the past with the BJP. You were among those who said that once a BJP government comes, the muscular policy will work. Today, are you willing to take a step back and accept that whichever government is in power in Delhi, you can't have only one size fits all?
Rajdeep, yes, I am always willing to review my position. I am not, cast in stone as far as ideas are concerned. But before I respond to your question, the gentleman before Mrs. Sarangi spoke.
Manoj Joshi.
spoke about managing Kashmir. Managing Kashmir with political elements, with bureaucracy, with experts, with authors, with, some amount of muscular policy, some amount of imaginative this, that, and the other. It is the nub of the problem. That is where there is a seizure, there is some kind of a takeover of the mind that decides in our policy establishment. We are trying to manage Kashmir, contain. We are not trying to eliminate jihad, which is in a mortal combat with Indian nation. We are trying to mollycoddle, appease, sometimes pay a ransom, sometimes please, make exceptions, throw a crumb.
Manoj Joshi
Or-
says,
Sushil
Pandit, Manoj Joshi says sometimes the ranting, this anger, you see,
It's not ranting.
the anger, no, 1 minute,
you
sir.
can call
Sir,
it
1 minute,
ranting.
1 minute. There is a sense that in different parts of the country, when there is an anti-Muslim sentiment being expressed, for example, in Kashmir, it only encourages the jihadi elements then to, in a way, use that rage with a gun to target innocent Hindus. That's the fear. That if we are always going to live at this high decibel level, we are creating potential for these jihadis to once again resurface and find an upper hand. That's the worry.
This is retrofitting an alibi. In 1990, which anti-Muslim sentiment was sweeping this country when Hindus were expelled from Kashmir? How do you rationalize that? What happened? What were we paying for? So don't retrofit alibis, don't rationalize things where it just doesn't belong. If an entire community faced genocide 32 years ago, on which anti-Muslim sentiment do you attribute that to?
You want to respond,
And
Manoj
this is
Joshi?
continuation of that in
Manoj
Kashmir.
Joshi, are you trying to rationalize the violence? Yeah, you made your point. Manoj Joshi, whether you use the word ghamand of the center, the arrogance of the center, or the muscular language that you use, are we rationalizing the violence that's always existed for 3 decades?
I'll give you a very clear point.
Yes.
The question of ghamand arises when, and this is, I think, connects to Shahzad Loan's muscular point, that when you go around telling the country, we fix Kashmir, our Operation All Out is going to fix everything. What you do is you deliberately encourage, because it's very easy for people who have one pistol to dominate a whole locality. It doesn't take much. Terrorism works on fear. See, terrorism works on fear. And the point with what is happening today is classic terrorism. You're killing completely unarmed people, you're completely harmless people who are from the cultural side or from bankers or whatever it is, you're killing them. The whole point is to create fear. And one pistol can do it. It doesn't require AK-47, it doesn't require Pakistan. But the point is, this is how to deal with this. And I'm sure, and I can tell you from whatever I hear of the government, they have absolutely zero answers.
No, but Manoj Joshi, what's the answer to muscular? You see, if we assume that the government is muscular...
Rajdeep, please come here.
1 minute. If we assume, Manoj Joshi, that muscular politics is not working, what is the answer? As Aparajita Sarangi points out, big ticket, these large-scale terror attacks have been contained.
But I have given you the answer. My answer is that if you take on killing individuals, when individuals are killed, you can't. It's very difficult. The question is the overall thing. And the overall situation can only be handled by a combination of means.
Right.
Meaning, after all, between 1990 and almost 2020, we didn't have this phenomenon of individuals being knocked off. You see,
sorry,
we had people attacking the security forces.
No, there have been targeted killings over the years. Perhaps, there have been targeted killings. But yes, a final point. Yes, Sushil Pandit, you want to make a point. Yes.
See, targeted killings are the old phenomenon. Even Sajjad Loan's father was a targeted killing. Tikalal Taplu, Sarvanand Kaul Premi, Justice Neelkant Ganju, Advocate Premnath Bhatt, they were all targeted killings and they happened 30 years ago. So this is not a new phenomenon. Please don't attribute it to any new development. Number two, what Sajjad Loan was talking about as muscular policy and Operation All Out, why didn't you ask him? You were a cabinet minister in the government that was conducting this policy on ground. And you wanted to be chief minister after that government was put in a cold storage to be resurrected again after the elections. You owned up that operation, which is why I call them hypocrites.
Okay, so in a way...
They were part of this muscular setup. They wanted to be ministers and chief ministers and doing this for them. And now they are out of favor. They call it some kind of a problem.
Let me leave it there.
You should have cornered him on that.
Okay.
How could he get away with it?
I will, Sushil.
Call it ranting, call it whatever. I am angry because people get away with their lives and hypocrisy here. knowing fully well what they're saying is wrong. They lie on the show and get away with it.
Okay, strong words. Strong words, in a sense, reflect the anger and anguish that people have. Innocents are getting targeted. And it appears that the Modi government now needs to, in a way, fine-tune their policies for this changed environment on the ground. It can't just be this muscle flexing. You're going to need a way to actually end the political vacuum. That could be one of the challenges for the government. I appreciate all my guests joining me on the show tonight. It's time for a break. On the other side, we'll bring you tonight's Good News Newsmaker. The first Indian to win the International Booker for a Hindi book for a translated work. Geetanjali Shree scripted history last week. She'll join me in a moment. You're watching the news today. News without the noise.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com or call 9999892171. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices.
You are watching India Today.
Welcome back. Let's turn to our Good News Today story. Indian author Geetanjali Shree scripted history last week in London when she became the first Indian author to win the International Booker Prize. Remember, the International Booker Prize is for translated works. So she won it for a Hindi book, Ret Samadhi. The English translation is The Tomb of Sand, a novel, a family saga set in the shadow of the partition of India and follows the life story of an 80-year-old woman after the death of her husband. It was published in Hindi in 2018, as I said, as Ret Samadhi. It is a big moment for Hindi literature, and I spoke earlier to Geetanjali Shree. Listen in. And joining us now is our newsmaker. Geetanjali Shree is with us, the first ever Indian author to win an International Booker for a translated work. Her book, as we said, Ret Samadhi or Tomb of Sand, won the International Booker in London last week. Congratulations, Geetanjali, on this huge achievement, and welcome to the news today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Big moment. How has this changed your life? It's less than a week since you won this award. How has it changed your life?
It doesn't feel like less than a week. It feels like forever. And I hope it has not changed my life forever, because at the moment it's I'm spinning like a top, like a lattu. And well, I know it's something wonderful, but it is extremely tiring, and it's in some ways not me. You know, a writer is a very private person, and suddenly to be all over the place and in so many public events is quite, I won't say traumatic, but it takes a lot of adjusting.
What was your first thought when you won this award, when you knew that you'd won this award?
Well, I must have been a bit dazed, because it took me several long seconds to understand that our book and my name had been announced. And the translator actually had to walk towards me and kind of shake me out of my reverie. And then I got up. My first thought, I mean, I don't think I could even really know. It didn't. I knew. I mean, all the shortlisted authors knew that it could happen to any one of us, but yet none of us must have really believed that it was going to happen to me, to any of them. So it just came as a wonderful, like I keep saying, a bolt from the blue, but a wonderful one.
What does it mean for not just you, but for Hindi literature to be recognized in this manner? Has, in your view, Hindi literature finally got a sense of its status globally, long due status?
Well, it's certain. I mean, there's certainly this happening means that the focus for the moment the light is shed on others, not only Hindi, I think South Asian language literature. So that is huge, and I'm really sort of humbled that I have become the medium for that. But on the other hand, this is just a moment, and I hope it doesn't remain just a hype and a hot moment and then everything dies down again. I think it's important to sustain this and follow it up with the continued interest and work towards discovering this new literature which is suddenly under the light.
You know, the reason I'm asking you this, Geetanjali, is that there's a sense that there is still a bias towards English writing, both in our country and indeed abroad, that eventually a book which had to be translated in English to get this recognition. In that sense, do you believe Hindi literature still is trapped in its inability to reach out to new audiences?
Well, again, I would say I would not single out just Hindi. I would say other South Asian language literatures. I think the problem is there is a bias, but it's also that English is the most accessible in today's world. English has the largest bit of resources, and it is center stage. So without even having a prejudice against other languages, quite easily a lot goes to English. So I think a special effort has to be made, and this is what this moment is saying to us. And I think we have to follow that up.
Therefore, if we look at the positive aspect, as you said, this is an important moment in that sense for Hindi literature. Does it open a new window of hope for Hindi writers who have often struggled in anonymity? Many of them have written wonderful works, but have never really got the recognition they deserved.
Well, certainly. I think it is certainly a moment of hope, and I'm sure, there will be greater interest from publishers, translators, and readers to go for this literature. But, and of course, I mean, this is a very vibrant literature which people, will only benefit from knowing. So I do think it's a moment of great hope.
Because Hindi newspapers, mass circulating. Hindi news channels, are watched far more than English news. What does Hindi publishing need to do in a way to break these barriers in a way, to get a wider audience for itself, in your view?
Well, I think translators have to be valued much more, and there has to be a good support system to, for translators so that we get good translations. But I do want to stress that it shouldn't become, just English on one side and the rest on the other. I think there really is need to translate into each other's language. And there should be this interest in, in increasing this dialogue with many languages through translation.
I want to tell you that I picked up the book and I've started reading it, and it is really, it is serious literature. Which sort of with the focus clearly on the characters. How difficult do you believe in this age where everything is here and now, where this is the age of Instagram, how difficult do you believe it is to keep this tradition of serious writing alive? Do you believe that there is this space opening up to keep serious writing alive?
At one level, it is difficult today because it is about instant gratification and people not having time, to read, to sit down and seriously go through what looks like difficult literature. But on the other hand, I would like to believe that there are still people, who want to make that sort of time and will still go for that. And even this book, a lot of people have, initially even dreaded opening it because they thought they didn't have the time to read a book this fat. But and some who started felt, that it was, a bit flabbergasting. They felt a bit flabbergasted in the beginning and didn't feel they had the time and the patience for it. But there were many who just kept at it and felt very, very rewarded. And I think they're also giving a message to all the others.
How much of this book was, is drawn through personal, is there a personal experience that sort of, in a way, the characterization, the partition era that you reflect upon, how much of that is personal in a way?
There's always a personal element, but I think the very fact that it is fiction already means that it's not just personal. Many things come together to make a work. And, the fact that there's partition in the background of this book and there's a whole section which is very much about partition. I mean, partition is so much a part of our lives, especially in North India. So even though I have no direct personal experience and nobody in my family has a direct personal experience, I'm so much surrounded by it. Surrounded by the stories, surrounded by other people's experience. And also, partition and everything that it stands for continues to play sometimes a very sinister role in our lives even now.
Growing up, Geetanjali, was there a writer you idolized or a book that is your favorite?
I wouldn't like to name one, but, I've been asked this question so many times that I wonder what should I say. I mean, in recent times, I would say Krishna Sopti. I think there's something in her work which is so inspiring. I mean, just her sense of freedom and her sense of just going the way she wants to, and doing very, very powerful and different and wonderful things in all her works. So Krishna Sopti in recent times. And a book which is not necessarily a physical book, but I think a lot of us Indians live with it, is the Mahabharata. And I do think that it's something which has something in it for everybody all the time. So I think Mahabharata has really been work that has stayed with me.
I want to raise this final question. If I walk down the street into a Khan market or into a bookshop that you're there, you hope to be instantly recognized. Arundhati Roy's life changed with the Booker. That's why I'm asking you. I spoke to a neighbor of yours who said Geetanjali is a very private person. She's not the kind who's going to be mobbed. So if you enter a bookshop tomorrow and suddenly people recognize you, how will it change you?
Well, I think if it's happening within limits, then of course I'm going to enjoy it also. It's lovely to discover that there are people who are happy along with you, and it adds to my happiness. But if it became, that I'm going to be mobbed, then I think I am going to really, really hanker for my privacy and my cave again, and I'll try and run away.
But a final word for all those young aspiring writers in Hindi, in regional languages. I mean, sometimes we just don't look at the efflorescence of languages in our country, many of whom have wonderful writers writing in their languages. What is your message to those young writers who will now look up to you and say, look, if Geetanjali could do it, maybe we could too?
Well, I'll say something which may or not make sense to people today who are so much on the social media and believe in publicizing themselves. I mean, who believe that it's necessary to do things to bring their work forward. I think if I have a message to give, it is, if you like to write, just keep writing and keep at it. And other things, if they have to happen, will happen by themselves.
I'm sure they will, Geetanjali. I hope you're resting well. How have you, what is your way of, in a way, getting de-stressed from all these events, as you're saying, that have surrounded you post the award? What is your best stress buster?
Well, at the moment, I'm searching for that.
Okay, well, Geetanjali, as I said, it's been a delight to listen to you, and of course congratulations, because I think it has broken another barrier, another glass ceiling in a way has been broken by what you've achieved. So thank you very much for joining us here and for the award.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's it on the show tonight. I want to leave you with our image tonight because with heavy hearts, fans and the film fraternity bid farewell to singer KK. Several celebs and singers paid their last respects, the funeral rituals taking place at the Versova crematorium. His voice will remain forever. Thanks for watching. Stay well, stay safe. Good night. Shubhratri.
जिंदगी कल मिल जाए तो ये तो मंगा दो ना खुश नसीबी
India's #1 political reporter.
Defines what seems to be happening, vendetta politics. कोई दूध के से धुला हुआ नहीं है.
Unmatched eye, unmatched experience.
The world has changed. My black hair has become grey as well.
And with unmatched passion for the story.
Do not monopolize the conversation.
When it's 100% pure prime time. It's News Today with Rajdeep Sardesai. Monday to Friday, 9 p.m. Only on India Today TV.